Harrelson, and today we're going to be talking about building a knowledge base. Joining us are two rock stars, Brian and Cliff. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Glad y'all could make it. Now, you two are with Lone Star Communications. So let's do intros first. If you want to tell me a little bit about what Lone Star Communications is.
I can start. So basically, Lone Star Communications, we work in two verticals. We work in education and healthcare. In healthcare, we install communication systems like nurse call systems. So if you're ever in the hospital, laying in the bed, and you press the button, we're the guys that light up the light and get the call to the right nursing station, so you can have a caregiver come to the room. And then in schools, we manage bell schedules. We also manage critical events in the school, lockdowns, weather events, and anytime you're in the school and the bell rings, the shift classes. Those are the systems we put in those school districts. So, and a lot of other technology, but that's really the core business. We basically get to the nurse calls to the right caregiver at the right time, and then we pull a lot of analytics on those events and work with informatics people on site to get their workflows a lot cleaner across the hospital, multiple departments, multiple IDN systems. So a lot of techie integrations.
That's involved. So Brian, if you want to tell us what you do for Lone Star Communications, then I'm going to ask the same of you, Cliff.
Currently, I am actually in our research and development department. I literally write the software to integrate different technologies. We hate to call it middleware, but we love to call it the ecosystem. But I primarily write new software for the new developments that we have for Lone Star within the healthcare and education verticals.
Very cool. And Cliff, what about you?
My job is to take all the cool stuff that Brian actually creates and go out to the hospital and meet with the customer and figure out how that stuff will fit into their technology plan. So how we can integrate these different integrations in to our core systems, plus the systems they've already purchased, and marry the two together. So it's a lot of creative thinking and a lot of hardware and a lot of different software. But our goal is basically to, improve the patient's stay in the hospital and take some workflows off the caregivers that are taking care of those patients.
So I know there's a lot, as you kind of talked about earlier, all the moving pieces. There's a lot to Lone Star Communications, but today we're going to specifically talk about what you guys have called your Techstar app. So before we jump into that, tell me a little bit about one of the pain points that Lone Star Communications really had and which kind of derived the need for this solution.
So we represent a lot of different manufacturers. Each manufacturer has a website that you need to log into, and they have what we call like a customer connect or a knowledge base library across multiple manufacturers. And it becomes very painful to have 50, 60 technicians out there in the field, and you have to set up logins and usernames for each manufacturer and each technician, onboarding new techs, and then actually offboarding techs that aren't with us anymore. So it just made a lot more sense to centralize. And that's kind of the theme of this whole thing is when you're building apps, centralizing the data and getting them all in one location, so that when people onboard into the company, it's a lot smoother process to get them to the information faster. There was just a lot of workflow issues with multiple logins, multiple users. So it just made perfect sense to put it all in an app.
And what sort of challenges did you guys face trying to find a solution to make this easier?
There's kind of a backstory to that with Brian and I. We didn't know each other. We knew we worked for the same company, but Brian's in Grand Prairie, I'm in Houston, and we were actually invited to be part of an innovation team. They picked some employees out of the company. They put us in a group. We didn't have a name. So we all met and we ended up calling ourselves the DoD, which is a Division of Disruption. And we honestly didn't know what we were going to talk about. So we would just started throwing things against the wall and said, well, I've been dabbling in app dev. This started 2 years ago. And then Brian had already created some knowledge-based libraries in WordPress and some other applications. And so I got to showing Brian what we could do in Glide. And at first, I'll let Brian jump in here, but at first, Brian was like, there's no way we're going to be able to build this library in Glide. I said, let me show you. And that's kind of the origin story.
Brian, what did you think when he said we're going to do this? And now, but for those who don't know, Cliff, if I can, I want to show the stack of manuals that this is what, and tell me what we're looking at here. What is this, the old way?
This is the old way. So in your service truck or at your house or at the office, you get a customer calling saying, I got an issue. And then you're going to jump in one of these books, or you've scanned the stuff in and you've saved it in a Dropbox somewhere or a OneDrive, or you've figured out your own way to, have your own collection of information. And every user had a different place they stored this stuff. Or they would log into the Rollin website or the manufacturer's websites. And, that process was very lengthy, especially if you forgot your password or you hadn't been in there a while and you had to get it reset. So the customer is sitting there waiting on the other side of the phone, waiting for you to, at least steer them in the right direction to fix a service issue. And it was just a very long process. So that's what we do. We basically digitize this information and slowly put the important pieces in the Techstar app, and excluded some of the stuff that we didn't need in there.
Yeah. And so for those who are watching, we're going to have a couple of elements. First, we're going to look at what your technicians, what your techs in the field look at and how they interact with it first. And then we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive, because I think we'll be curious to know how you built this. But Brian, what were your initial thoughts when Cliff's like, we're going to build this? This is what's going to happen. So he was kind of setting you up there. I'm just curious what your initial thoughts and then afterthoughts.
Well, from like Cliff mentioned, I had already previously been working with WordPress and some other things to create a knowledge base. And when he said that in the form of a mobile app, again, I had never met Cliff, but I had heard about him. I knew he was a smart guy, but when he said that, having a previous and existing history in writing apps from using Swift, Xcode, things like that, I thought, man, this guy is crazy. There's no way we're going to be able to deliver anything in a timely manner, and that it's responsive to all these devices that all these technicians have. So I was very, very skeptical initially once he brought that up. I had not even been exposed to anything per se as no code, low code, and so I did not see the vision that he had initially.
So I want to see. So when you're ready, can I pull your screen, Brian? I want you to walk us through what the Techstar app is, and let's jump into this. So what are we looking at here?
Okay, so again, having the experience in developing mobile apps, you have to have a clear vision of what your need is, and so having that clear idea of what the job to do is and what the need is, it sort of gave us a map to actually jump into developing this. And so Cliff initially started developing it. And so what was interesting is the app that you're looking at. This is actually what we started 2 years ago. This is the demo app from 2 years ago in classic apps. A lot of the veterans here may notice that this is a classic app, but this is where it initially started. and it's had great momentum. So what we're looking at is a screen that once a technician logs in initially when it comes up. So I'm going to walk you through, pretty much what that job to do or what that initial need was. And that was to get information into the hands of the technician right in the field, right in front of the customer. Okay, so here, as you come up, you scroll up, you'll see some of the different technologies that we have. I'll use this education icon initially. So when a technician goes into this, he looks at a particular technology, which we call the Telecenter Campus, and it's TCU devices, overlays, and server requirements, operational guides, things that we have identified that we could actually become the disruption in our industry by empowering our technicians. So as you go into it, you can actually click devices. And for the TCU, the Telecenter Campus, these are the devices that are in that system. And when they actually click into the system, let's say they go to the controller here, one of the things, because of new technologies and things of sort, we were able to actually utilize Glide's ability to embed YouTube links. So we immediately started creating, we actually had a YouTube channel, but we didn't have one specific for this. So we created one. And what we do is we use metahumans. And actually, so these are not real people, but it was just a fun thing to do. And again, because we didn't have the resources available to us at the time to have a guy to do this, we utilized this particular method to get information in a video format. So, these videos are, really, they have been really a hot thing for us. So if you go to the controller, you can pull up spec sheets right on the spot, device size, and also here is actually quick service. So immediate service to the technicians when they're in the field. For the controller, they can actually click it. And again, we have another guy here that can explain to them and walk them through what they need to do to actually bring this system back online. Now, in education, these are critical communication systems. Not only do they ring bells, but they are utilized for lockdowns, weather alerts, and things like that. So we want these systems to come back up and be online as quickly as possible. And like you mentioned earlier, one of the pain points is, imagine driving 3 hours to a site, getting out to the site and not having the information needed to require to bring that system back up, and a technician having to drive back and reschedule another day to go back. Those return trips equate lots and lots of labor, hours, and money. So it was this particular method and what we were utilizing this for gave the technicians the ability to be interactive with us, give us feedback, and also resolve problems rather quickly. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, this could be utilized by any IT oriented company. I mean, my former life, I really would have loved to have had this and had each of my clients, what's inside their network, just like this. So if I dispatched a tech, they would know what was there, and even IP schemas and everything. Like this would have solved some of my pain points a few years back. Yes.
And the thing really cool about this, Glide, initially when I was introduced to this, even actually going into it, again, I went into it with a lot of skepticism, because when you're creating something in a traditional way of mobile development, you have to really have processes and team building to where, how to build this. I mean, so imagine if you had a Word document. Now, if you had a clear indication of what you wanted to accomplish in a Word document, and I started the first paragraph and I call Cliff up and say, hey, can you finish this for me? Come on. I mean, if he knows what the clear goal is, taking that Word document and finishing what I started is relatively simple. This Glide was actually a meeting ground for us like that. It was so easily for us to actually, he would work on it one night, I would come behind him and I'd work on it the next night. I wouldn't even have to call him up and ask him what he was doing, because I had a clear vision of what our need was and what we were trying to accomplish. So the handoff in this was just amazing. and that was one of the reasons why we were so quick at being able to deliver something for our technicians.
So you're saying, as opposed to traditional development like Swift or something else, it's a lot harder to work in tandem or take segmented breaks where he does a little, you do a little. But as an IT infrastructure, like, this is a lot easier for you to hand off certain pieces or elements and work in tandem. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I mean, traditionally
Yes.
developing that, you would have to, it would require so much, I would say political input. And so, there's a lot of bottlenecks in that. And then again, the group team effort of developing. I mean, like right now at Lone Star, we actually have a Glide team. I mean, and it's something that does not require someone to come in with an extensive background in mobile development. They just have to have a clear idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And one other thing I'll throw in here that was super impressive was the Glide community. I mean, there was guys like Robert Petito, Darren Humphreys. These guys, man, you would ask a question and they would come back and put this in layman's term so that you could understand. First they would say, what are you trying to accomplish? And then they would come back and put it in layman's terms to make it so easy to understand. And that was a really big thing within the Glide community, was that ability to actually have a conversation with these guys that were experts, and they would come back and then tell you exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Multiple guys, by the way, it would be multiple guys jumping in to help. So that was another part of our success. Sorry, Cliff.
No, and a good example of this is if we're all guilty of this in IT world. There's a lot of decentralized information. So a lot of people have stuff written in Notepad or OneNotes or something like that, and then you got to hand this over to your help desk, and they don't even have the IP addresses of the servers. They don't even know how to remote into the site. So when Brian was talking about like being able to hand this off to somebody, if you just create a table in Glide and you put your main headers in there, your main columns in there, pretty much, I mean, let's just say we were doing sites. You could put, server 1, server 2, server 3, and they will automatically know, okay, I need to fill in the IP information. Is this running server 2012 or 2019? And they just start filling the sheet out, because that's what you're missing. You're missing the centralized information. And once you populate that table, you've already built it in Glide. So now it just starts populating the app. Now you're starting to centralize your IT information. And then in real time, people can update the IP. If you do a server migration or whatever, you can start collecting notes on, okay, now we took them to 2019 server. Here's the new IP. Here's the new specs on the server. So it makes it a lot easier this is a game changer for IT world right here. I mean, you can start adding notes, tech notes, and what you did. And I mean, there's so many things you can do, but it's very easy for an IT person just to open up a data table and say, okay, I just need to update this, add a row, add a column. And that's where all the creativity comes in.
This was my number one problem in my former life, was when an on-site tech would go on site and the documentation didn't match what was in the environment, or they made a change and didn't update the documentation. It's the same result, because whoever comes after them or whoever came before, if they didn't update the documentation, and I could now easily build that in Glide. I could even build in a check-in, check-out, where they're on site, they check in, and then create a flow to check out. Did anything change? What changed? And we know what's on site. We know the inventory. They could go in and they can update it. And I could force them to do it. Like, now I want to go back and do IT again. So because this solved all those pain points. All my pain points were solved with this. This is incredible.
Yes. And, once we developed it, one of the things that we wanted to do was be able to show our C-level statistics and data that they were hearing from the actual technicians. Seeing the data, hearing the data is one. The technicians saying, this is great, but actually seeing, measured key performance indicators that we would put in the app. We started actually using Google, tying it to Google Analytics. And when they saw the interactions that we had, I don't remember the exact number, Cliff knows off the top of his head, but the initial interactions that we had was off the chart. And they immediately saw that, you know, how much this changed the game for us in respect. And also what was impressive is, again, how quickly we were able to create it. And then that goes to how intuitive it is to actually go in and start. Now, the thing is, when you go into Glide, it's so cool. You definitely need a roadmap, because you'll start getting into this and you'll want to do all these other cool things, you know, that you learn along the way. But you want to actually accomplish that key specific goal and then come back and start adding a little bit of color. Like Cliff always says, you know, Cliff is the UI guy. So the integrations and the actual flow of it, that's one thing. But then coming back and adding the color and you know, the different buttons and things like that. But it was a game changer for us.
I would say most IT people probably already have either some type of Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheet, some way that they're keeping their information. And the way Glide works is, if you've already got something started, and you want to jump into this, just create an account and load your sheet into Glide, and it's pretty much going to steer you in the right direction. It's going to automatically create some visuals for you and some tables right off your own data set, and then you're in. You're building and just start experimenting and trying different things. But if you've already got a sheet to start with, create an account, log in, link your sheet to a new app, and start building.
I want to get into the nuts and bolts of this and sort of like how you configure these buttons and all of that. But what if it's a tech company that already, here's a question. What if they already have a ticket system? There's already ticket systems in. Are you guys using any of the advanced API features to tap into tickets? You're thinking about it, aren't you, Brian?
Absolutely. So what's really cool is we're working with the integrations team, and the integrations that Glide has now, I say now, just here in the recent past, has updated to the environment is just phenomenal. I mean, the ability to tie it to SQL database or MySQL databases, or to do integrations with APIs. Now, again, when you get into those type of integrations, that does require a bit more knowledge on the integration side. But again, when you look at the way that they've actually constructed it, it's really, really easy. And an IT group that normally develops APIs or things, they'll fall in love with this just because of the ability to literally go in, and it's well documented within the environment. It's really, really cool. So yes, we're looking at, we're playing with a lot of different things. We're tying it to our CRM, where we're literally reading data from our CRM. We're looking, we actually started messing around with the API integrations, PDF integrations, and the mapping. It's been a lot. To speak on the whole mapping aspect of it, we serve a lot of school districts, which are huge school districts here in Texas. We have 100 to 120 schools in some of the school districts. And so when we onboard a new technician, he has no idea where those schools are. But when he actually goes into the app, it literally will actually go, and he clicks a button and it brings up his Google map and shows him how to get to the site. Once he's there, what closet the system is located. It's insane. It's so awesome. And again, the technicians fall in love with it immediately, because they're out there in front of a customer, and they want to look and sound as professional as possible, and prove that they have at least the ability. If they don't know the answer to a question, they can go to the app and get that question immediately.
Brian, I can't tell you how much money back in the day I spent on a solution that was nowhere near as good as this. Nowhere near as good. And it wasn't mobile. So like what you've built here probably is already industry leading. This is what's incredible.
It's like, when you subscribe to that software, you're probably only using about 10% of its functionality. And there's a lot of bloatware in that software. Building with Glide, you build to, it's like a glove. You build to the exact need that you need in your app and no more than that. You don't have all the bloatware, and it really fits your company's workflow, because my workflow may not fit another IT company's workflow, depending on the hardware and the devices and the way I name things. And it allows you to really tailor the app to the problem you're having, which technicians want to basically use something. They don't want all that bloatware. They want a fast, quick process, and keep it simple. And so that's what Glide does. It just really fits the problem, the use case very well, because you're building a custom interface for yourself.
Do you think that the days of making your processes fit a software are over, and now it's more about making the software fit your own processes? That's kind of what I just heard you say.
I think that job to be done, you know the problem already, so you almost work backwards. You almost work from the problem to the solution. And so, yeah, you can literally invent your own workflow in Glide. I mean, it could be a ticketing system. It could be a customer-facing app, which allows the customer to literally request service, take a picture of something and send it to you, and then you answer them back immediately. The hardest part of all this whole thing is really centralizing the data. That's been our number one roadblock, is just figuring out how to get everything consolidated, especially like when Brian says you got one school district with 150 schools in it, right? And that's just one school district. So we're slowly, like, this was built 2 years ago. It's in Classic, but we're slowly moving over to Pages, and we've learned a lot from this. And then that's really going to open a lot more of these integrations up for us. It's just, we have a full-time job, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's been kind of a slow process to get that moved over, but there's just so many things you can do in the new version of Glide with AI integrations, APIs, and SQL. So it's really going to open up a whole different version of this application down the road. So
let's jump into this. Brian, I want to see a little bit of how you built this, how it was constructed. So let's move into that, because this is extremely exciting. So what are we looking at here?
Okay, so in Glide, they have their data editor. And again, I guess this is built 2 years ago in the classic model. And again, once you have that clear indication of what your need is, it's literally just following the flow of what you're trying to accomplish. Now, initially, you could have this in a regular Excel spreadsheet. A Google sheet is what you can initially start with. And what you're doing is you're actually just bringing the information into Glide from those Google sheets, and you have the ability, like here, we're just beginning with users. Now, this is a demo version. In our actually production version, we have over now about 325 users, I believe. But again, what users do you want to access, and what user information do you want to be associated with each user? Are they in the sales group? What role do they play? What system access do they have? All of these are some of them are bringovers from the Google Sheet, and then some of them are actually calculations rows that Glide has the ability to add to it. For instance, if you look here at the name, what team, if you look at this template here, this is a template that's created where we actually take two fields, or we actually take a field and we replace a name to be that person's full name. Without getting down into each granular actual column, there's so much that you can do for each particular table that you actually have within Glide. So here's our users. And the next part of it was, you know, what equipment do you want, or what? Let's just go to the equipment or devices. So if we scroll down here to system, you can actually see here the different systems that we actually have in here and how we did relational tables, which again, you know, from the service, it may seem a bit intimidating, but it's not intimidating at all. You're just taking two columns from two different tables and building a relation to them so that you can reference them correctly. So here you're looking at where we do relational tables per system. Now, once you get the systems in there, you want to actually start adding devices. And so here you'll see just tons of devices that we have in here. And again, those devices, what information do you want to list from those devices? You know, how much information that do you want to put in there? There's relational tables, there's images, there's actual reference. If earlier you saw the device spec sheets, those are being pulled right from Google Drive. Again, Cliff spoke to the centralizing of information. And now with the actual interactions between with integrations with SQL and other things, you can actually now have this in your own database and be pulling from that as well. But then also the device video links are coming right from YouTube, embedded right into the app. So again, here you see more relational tables. And so now you have all your devices in there and device information. And so again, when you relate back to that roadmap of what you're actually trying to design and what you're building, what needs you're trying to serve, you can actually get into, you know, the software. What do you want to present about the software? What are you wanting to present about the servers? You know, server requirements for each one of these systems. All of this information is right in the fingertips of our technicians when, like you mentioned earlier, previously, they had to go pull up those manuals, you know, from the service aspect of it, you know, troubleshooting. You know, you'll see how we've broken it out into troubleshooting. And again, you see all of the icons and all that. That was just Cliff coming in and doing his thing to create those icons. And again, you know, it's just table and table and table of what need are you trying to solve. And what happens is once you meet that initial need, you'll actually start doing other things like, well, man, we can do this. I mean, we can actually add this, and you know, and then you can actually come and do some form of feedback from the technicians. Like the technicians will come in and say, you know, again, this is old data, and this is our demo app, but the technicians can come in and say, you know, tell us how this app is working for you. So they actually have an input where they can actually come in, date created, who the user was. I mean, this was just amazing for us to be able to do this. And again, you know, all of the site projects, these were projects that we could actually add to each location. So again, we kind of pulled this out of the demo app from the initial front view. But again, relational tables in here, being able to relate to devices, systems, contacts, just so many other different things that we could actually build relational tables with, and also doing mathematical functions. It's quite a bit. But these tables that are in Glide, again, are no different than what you would do in a Google spreadsheet. I mean, a Google spreadsheet or Excel spreadsheet, and having the ability to do formulas, just an amazing amount of integrations and things that Glide has been adding to this. Again, they've been adding this stuff almost monthly, and Cliff and I are just over here eating it like candy. We love it.
I love that we're already thinking of how you can expand this and the APIs that you can do. And there's a lot of that's interesting. That's all of this is really interesting. And there's other people that have other questions, but I'll save some of those for the end. Brian, do y'all use a ticket system where someone at a school district can put in a work request or a ticket? And are there any plans in the coming months to maybe have you and Cliff talked about integrating that automation?
It's funny you say that, because we just, I kid you not, we just had a lean contract to come in, and we're creating a lean process, and we have developed a group around doing the interactions and the integrations to Glide to put this particular app, well, another version of this app in the customer's hands in the field. For instance, I'll give you like a use case of it. We do put critical systems in education, and those guys, if you notice with all the school shootings and things of that nature, we want these systems to be relatively up rather quickly when they go down. So we actually have designed customer versions of Techstar for the customer, and it's branded for each school district. So when they actually open it up, their technicians are looking at something that appears to be something for specific to them. And this has had such popularity.
How would you build that? How would you build that, Brian? Would you create a different app in the same team that has access to a data, or a different app somewhere else that has access just to what that site has? Is that how you would set that up?
I'll actually let Cliff, because Cliff is on the brink of developing that. So I'll let Cliff kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what you would do. It's basically just one master template for the site, and then the data tables would stay consistent. And like, for instance, some of these devices in the field, not just servers, but the hardware itself, the hardware has an IP address. And if that hardware was to fail, we have to go back out there and replace it and actually re-IP the new device with the same IP, and it's just plug and play. But you got to do that ahead of time. So it's really important for the tech to know, hey, what was the IP address of the old device before I take the new one out there and plug it in to service it. So that's where this table would come into play, where you had all your hardware devices with their IP addresses listed on it, and possibly when, like a note when the last time it was serviced, what service technician was on site, was I'll just make up a name, Fred, out there a week ago, and he was already working on this, because it may be a different service tech that goes out there on a weekend or a night. It'd be nice to know when's the last time somebody's been out there. So that's the stuff we're looking at implementing, is making it part of their service agreement. So if we already have a contract with that customer, then make it easier for them to contact us. Rather than call the main number, they could go in there and dig into their own app, and put their as-built drawing in the, if you're an IT company that actually wired the place up, and the cabling diagram for the building, go ahead and put the as-built PDF into the app, so that you've got kind of an overlay of how you wired the building, how you're going to trace that cable out.
So this is so crazy cool. And you're making my nerd brain spin, because like what I would do, and I can think of all the automation I would do. Tracking IP, this is a question about tracking IP addresses and stuff, but literally, so there's two things here. One, if you give them the app, you can give them the ability to open a ticket, and something that I think would be incredibly intuitive and a new innovation, which is take a picture of it and upload right there from the app. So your tech sees what they see, and there's no conversation about, well, what do you see on the back? Like, it can be done right there. And the real nerd in me is coming out here, guys. So, if you have DHCP servers on premise, literally you can have an automated printout of IP addresses of everything that's been doled out in the past 24 hours, dump it into a text file, have AI pull it and sort it based on MAC address. So every device, the IP and what it was 24 hours ago. Like, there's so much you could do with this.
And here's what's so awesome is we started with this 2 years ago, and we literally wait, the technicians have no idea, but wait till they see version 2, which is not the classic, but over in Glide tables, where we are literally tying in the ability for AI. I mean, imagine this right now. Well, first, to get the books into the app, that was one thing. But then even opening up a book in a mobile version, it can be cumbersome sometimes trying to go through a PDF, a 500-page PDF. But now just imagine being able to just simply ask AI a question and being able to get that answer instantaneously
Yes.
from those manuals. So these are things now that Glide is offering from the new integrations. And so rather than taking version 1 from them, we're actually creating and building out. Because one thing that Cliff and I did, once we created it, about a year in, we were, and as Glide was, and we started learning more and more and more, we were like, man, we should have did this back then, or we should have did this back then, you know.
Yep.
But rather than go back and take that away from them, we said, you know what? Once we get the integrations, and once we again clearly focus on the needs, you know, because that's where you see the change, and build around those integrations. It's the new version of Techstar is going to be Tech Universe. I mean, it's going to be amazing.
Tech Cosmo, I'm ready. So you're
go.
going to show it to us first, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is really incredible. Cliff, what were you going to say? Sorry.
There's a Pandora's box of things you could do. It could be a QR code at the head end of the, in an electrical closet. They scan it, it automatically opens the app. They may not even have the app on their phone. And so, like, for service, scan here, and they scan it, and boom, the app pops up. If you've got on-prem servers, if the facility is willing to let you monitor those servers, you could technically build an interface inside the app that would let them know if things were on or offline. There's just so much you can do, and that's where, when you get a team together, people just start throwing ideas out, and you're like, wow. I mean, it just fosters innovation and creativity, because you're creating to a problem rather than some software company telling you, hey, you need to use my software because research shows that it blah, blah, blah. And it's just a bunch of marketing jargon. But now the people actually, I say, in the field are creating the app around their own problems, which is exactly what they wanted to begin with. So it really is very, like, it goes back to, it's very disruptive, but it's solving the problem for the people that are actually doing the work, not a layer of people that think that they're solving your problem for you. So it's, I find it very refreshing that the people that, do the stuff get to basically create their own apps and make their own life easier rather than using something somebody told them they have to use.
Yes. And going back to your question about the, creating a ticketing system. So we were using another brand for our ticketing system. And again, that was a ticketing system that was created for just not particularly for our industry, but it met some of the needs that we had. But being able to actually create an internal ticketing system, and then being able to integrate that to our CRM and do so many other things. And now that plays a major part in onboarding, or just having, an internal LMS. We don't have to send a guy out to get certified on how to use our ticketing system, because we created it. And we have a built-in LMS within the actual ticketing system to teach them how to use it. I mean, we have, I think we're in 4 or 5 different states, 7 different locations, and being able to centralize this, and everyone's getting the same training, the same onboarding.
Yes.
They're using the same ticketing system, and being able to actually, as other integrations come out, we can actually, add those type of integrations to our ticketing system. So our IT team love what we've been able to do with Techstar. And again, we're going through the lean process now, and the conversations have started. We had our first meeting today wrapped around how we're going to actually be tying in the new ticketing system and everything to the app that we're creating internally. And that's including a lot of things from sales to quoting to engineering. I mean,
yeah, inventory. Do we have a part in stock? We're working with the company that has the API we need to basically dig into our CRM that has, like, all that information in it. So that's do we have this part in stock? Okay, we don't have it, but Houston has it, or they have 10 of them. Well, let's just ship
Wow.
it over to our office.
Y'all are getting really nerdy with me, and I'm loving this. And Brian, something interesting in Cliff, like our last bill with Glide, we looked at a company called My Marketing Assistant, which is essentially a ticket-based system that creates a work order flow internally. It's essentially like that's the other piece that y'all really need. And we just kind of did that last week. So it fits perfectly, because if you're really going to give these someone on-prem to open tickets, to interact with the system, to have some capabilities, and you could even probably code scripts for certain things like pushing reboots. Like there's so much you could do, self-help even too, but giving them the ability to open tickets within their site that goes into your system that may then trickle down into a work order, and they can see the status, received, dispatch, like all of those things they could see just by the wheels moving inside your organization, and not having to spend all day communicating, which just minimizes the overhead and the time required. So it's incredible. I'm loving this.
There's some really good videos out there Glide has posted on creating custom actions. And the action editor is kind of like the key to the whole thing. If you just literally put a button on the screen and you open this action editor, you can literally create an entire workflow on the action editor. Like, you know, click this button. What do you want to have happen next? I want it to email this person. Okay, well, what do you want to do next? And you can create a very simple workflow or a really complicated one in the action editor screen. Push notifications, email people, update another table. It's unlimited, really. It's a very custom workflow, but it's very visual. So after you do all this, anybody can come behind you and literally click the button you made and then hit edit button, and you'll see the entire visual workflow on the screen. So it's very simple for another person to come behind you to say, okay, I see what Brian did, but I want to change it up a little bit and send it to somebody else, you know, or change the sound or the notification or add a new feature. So I guarantee you, when you get in there and you start building stuff, a week or two later, you're going to have another idea, and you're going to be like, oh, and you're going to learn something from another app you made, and you're going to go right back in that app and then add another feature to the app.
That's what's happening to me. And it kind of goes back to what Brian was talking about earlier, how easy it is to hand off this project and Glide, or the solutions that you're building from one person to another, how you can kind of build it in tandem. And what's interesting, Cliff, is that what we learned last week with My Marketing Assistant is the way they did it is any user that signs up, which could be, in your case, would be maybe someone on-prem that's sort of would manage the IT tickets, right? They could choose how they want the communication. They can choose perhaps email. Maybe they want a text, they want SMS, and your notification to them, tech on the way, could either go in their inbox, or you could even SMS them, or even push notifications. So there's so many ways that you could do this, and it could be their choice. That's what they did. I've got a great question for y'all too. This is a really good question from Cassandra. I have to ask this. Do y'all see more and more companies building internal Glide teams of their own? This is a really good question.
Well, Cliff and I just completed another podcast specific to that subject. And I am saying absolutely. I mean, we are finding ourselves now not really training people on Glide, but just actually sharing our journey and within our industry, seeing people actually starting to create Glide teams.
Yes.
Again, we're adding to our team, and it's really cool because, when you first say, that you're going to be developing Glide to someone that's new, and there's that little bit of fear factor because, it's something new. I haven't heard of it. I mean, I shared that same feeling initially, and to be able to actually get in there and see everything that is available and how quickly you can create something and how easily it is to create it. Everybody loves it. Everybody wants now to be a part of it, and within our company, it makes us look like we're geniuses. These guys, traditionally this was a $250,000 project and so many labor hours just to create this. And now you're telling me this is not real. This is not real at all. And it's just
I'm going to jump in real quick, Brian.
Yeah.
Every company out there has like these people that work for them that have these superpowers, but they're kind of like, every big company has, management and corporate layers and all this. But what Glide does is gives somebody in the company knows the problem already, and they can build a quick app and then show somebody and say, hey guys, rather than go out and spend $10,000 a year on some software that y'all are looking to implement, I built this weekend, and it fixes the exact problem that we're having. And we can do more of this. And I guarantee you, it's going to change it's going to disrupt what's happening in your organization. And it also, you become a lifelong learner. So you're in Glide learning, jumping in the community, sharing with other people, and everyone's willing to help each other. So you can build an internal app, even if you're a first level IT tech and you see an issue. The way I always visualize this is, if somebody's still writing stuff down on paper and you have a form that somebody fills out, or a checklist, or some kind of notepad, you've got an app. That's an app. Whatever that process is, you could literally build that in a week, bring it to your leadership, your boss, and say, hey, check this out. And I guarantee you, they're going to be like, what did you just build? That they're going to freak out. Then they're probably going to ask how much and all this other stuff. But they're just so used to searching the internet and looking for something to sign up for $50 or $100 a user and pay for, rather than build something internally. So the dynamic shift is trying to convince leadership that you can build things internally versus going out and finding a third-party vendor and doing all this other stuff. Or bring in a Glide agency to help assist you with the app, and then get you going, and then it's your app. Save you from some of the pitfalls. But it's a game changer to build your own thing versus what I say the old school method is, just go subscribe to something and try it out for a while and then give up on it in 6 months and then go buy something else. That's usually what happens.
That is usually what happens. I can't tell you how many piles and piles of software I've bought over the years and used some of it for a month or two and then just ended up walking away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
100%. I tried a lot of things, and I think what made me the most frustrated was I had to change my process to fit the software as an IT person. However it worked was how I had to work. And that always made me crazy. So,
and last point is, now you're keeping the knowledge base of developing the app in-house. So when you need to fix it, your team actually learned from you learn from that whole process, and you've actually boosted the skill set of your internal team versus just subscribing to somebody's software and not being able to fix it. You got to call them to fix it. And so you're educating all your employees and making them a lot stronger in their skill sets by doing that project in-house.
I love that. That is such an absolute great point. I have one more question, and I'm sure you'll be able to give me this. Can we get, at the end of this, can you guys give me the link to your podcast? Because I think a few people really want to hear you here. If you can give me the link, I can add it in the YouTube comments afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, the version that is that was released by our company is actually on LinkedIn. It's a little bit buried, but we can provide that to you. And
I'll add it to the comments. So if you're watching this now, or if you're watching this for the first time, it'll be later. If you're watching it now, it's there. So
the theme, the actual theme was kind of interesting, is what they called it. They said was the citizen developer. And I was like, wow, that's unique. But and it was like, should the market be embracing it, or should the market kind of like think this is just a trend? And in that podcast, we express, no, this is the real deal. I mean, you really need to embrace it. And thank goodness Lone Star Communications they embrace it wholeheartedly.
Are y'all like how does it feel to be like working at Lone Star now after all of this work, building all of this DoD, the stuff that's really like cutting edge? How does it feel to kind of like be the hero in the organization? Because of course you guys are rock stars. This is like, how does it feel?
Honestly, for me, we're in the business of trying to make the patient experience in hospitals better and keep kids safe in schools. But to go to sleep at night to know that you created something, or you are a part of a team that created something that made life just that much better, I mean, that far surpasses any amount of money or I mean, to go to and actually my children to actually see, my dad was a part of that. So for me, it feels absolutely wonderful. That's why I said Glide better not go away.
And it's the community. It's like we're kind of an extension of the Glide community. Like, you can jump in the community, anyone will help you. Same thing internal to the company. If somebody reaches out to us, we're like, okay, what are you trying to do? And then we'll steer you in the right direction. I'm not going to claim that I'm the expert. I don't think the expert's kind of a weird terminology, because I don't think if you're not a lifelong learner, it really doesn't matter what you're an expert in today. There's always something you don't know, and there's always something you can learn from another, in this situation, another Glide expert. And sometimes a new person will actually come up with a cooler idea because they don't have the curse of knowledge. So they come at it from a different perspective, and you're like, wow, I didn't even think of that. I know how to build it. They may not know how to do it, but there's just a lot to being a lifelong learner and embracing all these changes and these new things, and building around Glide. So it just shifts the dynamic to the I guess what Brian said, the citizen developer. But I think that's just kind of a stereotype or something that keeps everybody like. I think if you're a lifelong learner, it really doesn't matter what your title is. If you're willing to jump in there and just start building, being a doer rather than a talker, then you're going to get stuff done, and you're going to make some really creative ideas, creative apps.
I love that, and I loved both of your answers. So in this journey of building one thing, how much do you solve each week or month for your company? Is there more than one solution that you've created besides Techstar? I know this is your flagship, but have you built other ones?
That's an understatement. I don't even know how many we actually have. It's just a matter of implementing. You have to implement this all correctly so it'll be as effective. You just don't want to throw everything at everybody at one time. But yeah. Yeah, we have probably over 85. I mean, from HR apps to company surveys, clocking in. I mean, just so many different things internally that just wraps around our company like a glove.
I love that.
We are full-time. We like Brian's full-time R&D. I'm full-time out in the field meeting with customers. So our meeting place for Glide is after 4:00. So that's where we jump into what we call our lab, and we're usually working on some a project, because people know that we build apps. So people will reach out to us all the time and say, "Hey, I have a problem. I have this situation." It doesn't have anything to do with our industry, but there's a lot of things you can build. So, and you learn from each one of them, and those lessons apply right back into what we do every day. We don't have 100% time to be in Glide all the time, because we're just like anybody out there. You're doing your 8 hours and trying to accomplish what you're trying to do in your job title. But Glide's kind of that nighttime, what do you call nighttime nerd out session that me and Brian go through all the time. And it's just very refreshing to build something, see it work, see how it impacts somebody's life or their day-to-day job, and just they're like, thanks for making that. That just made my job easier. You know, I was tired of filling that form out 100 times. Now y'all automated it. You know, y'all turned the form into an automated PDF. Y'all did this, and it's rewarding to get the thank yous and, you know, just making people's lives easier, and solving problems for people. Well, me and Brian are big time givers, so it's just we just try to help people out and pay it forward.
I love that, Cliff. That's one of the that's an incredible, like, wonderful way to round this off. So we've talked about y'all, Lone Star, what you needed, what you built, the Techstar app. We talked about the features of the Techstar app, site information, being able to pull site information, whether it's location info, site contacts, even the equipment. We talked about on-site, on-prem troubleshooting with YouTube videos, device info, troubleshooting walkthroughs, how you simplified the process, right into the hands of a tech on-prem, on-site. Then we talked about giving them feedback to the app. This is helpful. This is not helpful. And being able to present that analytics to leadership to show, look at the impact we're having. I mean, this has been incredible. So I'm going to add both of your LinkedIns here. So if anybody wants to follow y'all, the LinkedIns are going to be below. I'll add your podcast. If you shoot that over to me, we'll also put that in the description. And this has been fantastic. I can't thank y'all enough for coming here and sharing this with us and showing us how you built it and the nuts and bolts. This has been incredible information. Incredible.
Awesome. Likewise. Thank you for the invite.
Well, let's do it again. I'm ready for 2.0.
Hey, wait, man, let me tell you, we got some stuff that's really, really cool. I mean, really cool. So I look forward to sharing it.
I look forward to seeing it. So I'll see you two in the community and other experts I'll see in the community.
Absolutely.
So for everybody else, glide on. Good luck. Let us know what you build. Drop it in the forum. I love to see what people are building.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.